Hey, welcome back, Next Level Crew, to another episode of What's Your Next. And today we're going to continue on in a three-part series that will refer to the three F's, which are fear, funding, and familiarity, which are the three key things that are going to keep you from moving forward with acquiring a franchise. In the previous part, we covered fear, and we'll put a link to that video in the description below for you to go back and watch that video. If you haven't, you really should before you watch this one. And today we're going to talk about funding.
Welcome to What's Your Next. This is the go-to podcast for aspiring business owners who want to get to the next level, escape the rat race, and give their middle finger to the corporate 9-to-5. If you want financial freedom, work-life balance, and the business of your dreams, you're in the right place. Dave and Stacy Riska, husband-wife franchising duo, openly share their successes, failures, and lessons learned in franchising, business ownership, and working with your spouse.
The money. And so a lot of people wonder when they come into looking at franchises, when they go to the funding stage, one of the questions that comes up all the time is, do I have to have 100% of the money? And the answer to that is no, you don't. And there are some great funding opportunities out there. You do not necessarily need to have 100% or even 50% for that matter in most cases to acquire a franchise if you are willing to look at some really great funding opportunities. So Stacy, what does franchise funding entail?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. You're going to need and want money to fund the business of your dreams, and it can seem a little bit overwhelming. But a great analogy to think about is think of it like getting funding for a home. If you're going out to get your dream home, you know you're going to need funding, and you want to get pre-qualified. The reason for that is if you're going to go out and buy a home, you kind of want to know what you're qualified for. There's no point in looking for something that's out of your budget and out of your realm. So use that analogy when thinking of funding the business of your dreams with a franchise. So you need some money. Like Dave said, it doesn't all have to be in the bank because there's different aspects that you're going to need to fund. You're going to need money upfront right away to pay your franchise fee. There might be a training fee, and maybe there's a build out if you're doing like a brick and mortar. But then you're also going to want to have some money for your cash flow. There are some franchises that can be cash flow positive from day one, but most of them are not. So you need some time. You're going to want some money to do your marketing and have about 3 months of cash flow in the bank to pay yourself and or your employees as you're ramping up.
That's absolutely correct. So Stacy, now we understand what types of fund, the need for funding to acquire a franchise. So what are some of the funding options out there available to a prospective franchisee looking to acquire a franchise?
Well, I guess it's good news and it's bad news because there are so many options out there, but it can seem completely overwhelming. So we encourage our candidates to always work with a funding partner, and we have some great resources that we can connect you with. But we'll just kind of outlay some of the options here today. Most of you have probably heard of the most common one, SBA, Small Business Administration. There are many different programs within the SBA that you can look at. But some other ones that maybe you weren't aware of would be HELOC, HELOC, which is taking money from your home equity. There's also a ROBS, ROBS, which is if you have a 401k, you can take money out penalty-free, tax-free to fund your business. But there's personal loans, there's business loans, there's secured funding, there's unsecured funding. So Dave, you can see why when you start researching all the options, your head would be spinning. So that's why we really encourage you to work with a funding partner who has expertise and can guide you through looking at the different options and determine which might be the best for you.
Okay, great information on some of the sources out there. So prospective franchisee, how much money should they have?
The magic number, right? There is no magic number. In general, we tell our candidates, if you're serious about business ownership, you probably want to have about $50,000 in the bank. And that's because the franchise wants to make sure that you have money to live off of, that you can pay your bills, that you can put food on the table, that you can sustain yourself those first few months as you're ramping up. Now, some of the funding options that you may look at, like SBA, they also may require a small cash infusion, let's say 10 to 20%. So that's why you're going to want to have some cash in the bank, but the majority of your funding can be from outside sources.
Absolutely. And to add to that, one of the major reasons, or if not the most major reason why businesses fail, is undercapitalization.
It's true.
So when you go to get your funding, don't be afraid to ask for more than you think you need. You can always usually prepay it back if you don't use it. It's better to be overfunded than underfunded. So wrapping this up, Stacy, what are some of the final nuggets you can give to our listeners around funding?
Funding. I would say there's two things to focus on: the when and the how. So related to the when is, when do you start looking for these funding sources? And we advise candidates to start as early as possible. Learn about what the options are. Start the process of pre-approval, because some of these outside funding solutions, SBA, etc., they can take a while to get that paperwork done. So you're going to want to start that process early. The how is, don't sit there and try and do it all yourself. Because if funding is not an area that you're an expert in, then work with an outside funding partner. They're going to give you the best solutions and resources out there, and usually there's many that you can consider. So when you're looking at funding, think about the when and the how, and then start putting your business plan together. Start building the pro formas, get clarity on the numbers of what it's going to look like, because you're going to have to provide that to a funding partner anyways.
Absolutely. Show them the money. We're going to wrap this up. This was funding, again, part of a 3-part series: fear, funding, and familiarity. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next episode of What's Your Next?